Hey there, how are you? Hope you're doing well. So, as you can see, we are back again with another episode of Tuesdays with Morrie. This is the book that we are reading, Focus. Yeah. So, this is going to be the third chapter. I hope you have watched the other two chapters so that the continuity of the story is maintained. And do let me know. As you can see, the setup is a bit different today, and the mic is on today. So do share your feedback, how you like it better, what worked for you. Um, is there any suggestions that the suggestions are welcomed, and is there anything that I can add to make this series of bedtime stories a successful one? And hope it works out. So, um, following the trend, we would be doing a little bit of a recap of the previous chapter. The previous chapter was the syllabus. For all that was happening to him, his voice was strong and inviting, and his mind was vibrating with a million thoughts. He was intent on proving that the word dying was not synonymous with useless. The new year came and went, although he never said it to anyone. Mori knew this would be the last year of his life. He was using a wheelchair now, and he was finding time to say all the things he wanted to say to all the people he loved. When a colleague at Brandeis died suddenly of a heart attack, Mori went to his funeral. He came home depressed. What a waste, he said. All those people saying all those wonderful things, and Irv never got to hear any of those. Mori had a better idea. He made some calls. He chose a date, and on a cold Sunday afternoon, he was joined in his home by a small group of friends and family for a living funeral. Each of them spoke and paid tribute to my old professor. Some cried, some laughed. One woman read a poem. My dear and loving cousin, your ageless heart, as you move through time, layer on layer, tender sequoia. Mori cried and laughed with them, and all the heartfelt things we never get to say to those we love, Mori said that day. His living funeral was a rousing success. Only Mori wasn't dead yet. In fact, the most unusual part of his life was about to unfold. Chapter 3. The Student. At this point, I should explain what had happened to me since that summer day when I last hugged my dear and wise professor and promised to keep in touch. I did not keep in touch. In fact, I lost contact with most of the people I knew in college, including my beer drinking friends, the first woman I ever woke up with in the morning. The years after graduation hardened me into someone quite different from the stuttering graduate who left campus that day, headed for New York City, ready to offer the world his talent. The world, I discovered, was not all that interested. I wandered around my early 20s, paying rent and reading classifieds and wondering why the lights were not turning green for me. My dream was to be a famous musician. What is happening to me? Why am I making grammatical errors today? Pardon me, I'll repeat that sentence. My dream was to be a famous musician. I played the piano. But after several years of dark, empty nightclubs, broken promises, bands that kept breaking up, and producers who seemed excited about everyone but me, the dream soured. I was failing for the first time in my life. At the same time, I had my first serious encounter with death. My favorite uncle, my mother's brother, the man who had taught me music, taught me to drive, teased me about girls, thrown me a football, that one adult whom I targeted as a child and said, "That's who I want to be when I grow up," died of pancreatic cancer at the age of 44. He was short, handsome man with a thick mustache, and was with him for the last year of his life, living in an apartment just below his. I watched his strong body wither, then bloat, saw him suffer night after night, doubled over the dinner table, pressing on his stomach, his eyes shut, his mouth contorted in pain. "Ah, God," he would moan. "Ah, Jesus." The rest of us, my aunt, his two young sons, me, stood there silently, cleaning the plates, averting our eyes. It was the most helpless I have ever felt in my life. One night in May, my uncle and I sat on the balcony of his apartment. It was breezy and warm. He looked out toward the horizon and said, through gritted teeth, that he wouldn't be around to see his kids into the next school year. He asked if I would look after them. I told him not to talk that way. He stared at me sadly. He died a few weeks later. After the funeral, my life changed. I felt as if time was suddenly precious. Water going down an open drain, and I could not move quickly enough. No more playing music at half-empty nightclubs. No more writing songs in my apartment, songs that no one would hear. I returned to school. I earned a master's degree in journalism and took the first job offered as a sports writer. Instead of chasing my own fame, I wrote about famous athletes chasing theirs. I worked for newspapers and freelanced for magazines. I worked at a pace that knew no hours, no limits. I would wake up in the morning, brush my teeth, and sit down at the typewriter in the same clothes I had slept in. My uncle had worked for a corporation and hated it. Same thing, every day. And I was determined never to end up like him. I bounced around from New York to Florida and eventually took a job in Detroit as a columnist for the Detroit Free Press. The sports appetite in that city was insatiable. They had professional teams in football, basketball, baseball, and hockey. And it matched my ambition. In a few years, I was not only penning columns, I was writing sports books during radio shows and appearing regularly on TV, spouting my opinions on rich football players and hypocritical college sports programs. I was a part of the media thunderstorm that now soaks our country. I was in demand. I stopped renting. I started buying. I bought a house on a hill. Oh, that must be nice. I bought cars. I invested in stocks and built a portfolio. I was cranked to a fifth gear, and everything I did on a deadline. I exercised like a demon. I drove my car at breakneck speed. I made more money than I have ever figured to see. I met a dark haired woman named Janine who somehow loved me despite my schedule and the constant absences. We married after a 7 year courtship. I was back to work a week after the wedding. I told her and myself that we would one day start a family, something she wanted very much. But that day never came. Instead, I buried myself in accomplishments because with accomplishments, I believe I could control things. Wow. Somewhere we all feel the same, right? More accomplishments, control things, control your life. It doesn't work that way. I'm gradually learning it right now, and it doesn't work that way. Okay, continuing. I could squeeze in every last piece of happiness before I got sick and died, like my uncle before me, which I figured was my natural fate. As for Mori, well, I thought about him now and then. The things he had taught me about being human and relating to others, but it was always in the distance, as if from another life. Over the years, I threw away any mail that came from Brandeis University, figuring they were only asking for money. So, I did not know of Maury's illness. The people who might have told me were long forgotten, their phone numbers buried in some packed away box in the attic. Sounds so 90s, na? Phone numbers buried in some packed away box in the attic, written in the paper, not on the phone, not in the Google Drive, not in the cloud. Rustic. It might have stayed that way had I not been flicking through the TV channels late one night when something caught my ear. In March of 1995, a limousine carrying Ted Koppel, the host of ABC TV's Nightline, pulled up to the snow covered curb outside Maury's house in West Newton, Massachusetts.